Ever feel like the digital world is a bit like the Wild West? Well, today we're diving into a corner of that world where the danger is very real: ransomware.
Oh, absolutely. And with 8Base in particular, the stakes are incredibly high.
Let's break it down for our listeners. Uh, Imagine your most important data held hostage, and the only way to get it back is to pay a hefty ransom.
Yeah, it's a digital hostage situation. And with 8Base, these criminals are using a particularly aggressive tactic called double extortion.
Double extortion.
Exactly. They don't just encrypt your data, locking you out, but they also steal it and then threaten to leak it publicly if you don't meet their demands.
They're hitting you twice the pressure to pay up.
Yeah, exactly. And 8Base, they're really focusing on small to medium businesses, especially those in healthcare, finance, manufacturing, and IT.
Any particular geographic areas?
Yeah, they've hit companies in the US, Brazil, and the UK pretty hard. If you're in one of those areas, you really need to pay attention to this.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics here. How does 8Base actually get into these systems?
Well, think of it like a well-planned heist. They employ this multi-layered approach.
Multi-layered.
Yeah. Starting with something many people are probably familiar with, phishing emails.
Oh, those sneaky emails.
Yeah, they're carefully crafted, tailored to specific companies using language that's designed to trick employees into clicking on malicious links or opening infected attachments.
I think most people have encountered a phishing email at some point, but that's just the first step for 8Base, right?
Right, they don't stop there. They also buy pre-compromised network access.
Meaning,
It means someone else has already found a vulnerability and essentially unlocked the door for them.
so there's this whole underground economy, this marketplace for vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. It's a vast network, and once they're in, 8Base deploys Phobos-derived ransomware to encrypt data.
And how do we know it's them? What's their signature?
They tag the files with a specific extension, .8Base. It's like their calling card.
Okay, so they've locked the data with their .8Base tag, but they don't stop there, do they?
No, they don't. They want to make recovery as difficult as possible. So they use very specific commands to disable security features, like turning off firewalls.
They're really trying to cripple your defenses.
Yeah, imagine them systematically dismantling your defenses brick by brick. And they also target backups.
Because backups would be a way to get your data back. Right.
Exactly. So 8Base, they delete shadow copies, which are essentially backup points that could help you recover.
So they're thinking ahead, planning for every contingency.
Oh, yeah. And to get even deeper, they use tools like Mimikatz and SmokeLoader. These are like digital lockpicks that allow them to steal your passwords and access even more sensitive information.
So this is where the double extortion comes into play.
Exactly. They take all the stolen data and then they threaten to leak it publicly, adding another layer of pressure to their victims.
It's not just about locking you out, it's about stealing your most valuable information and holding it for ransom.
Exactly.
Let's talk about some specific examples now. Who has 8Base actually hit, and what were the consequences?
Well, back in May 2024, they attacked Nidec Instruments, a major corporation.
What happened?
They encrypted their servers, causing massive disruption to their operations. It shows that even large companies with significant resources aren't immune to these attacks.
And then there was that attack on Volkswagen in October of that same year.
Oh, that one was particularly damaging because 8Base actually stole and published sensitive data. Imagine the reputational damage for a company like Volkswagen.
Yeah, it's a PR nightmare.
Absolutely.
And it seems they're not just targeting businesses. In December 2024, they hit Croatia's port of Rijeka.
That's right. They stole invoices, receipts, even personal information. They're going after critical infrastructure, showing they're willing to target a wide range of entities.
It's a real wake-up call.
Absolutely, and they're not slowing down. Just last month, in January 2025, they attacked the Atlantic Fisheries Commission.
How did they get in?
They exploited vulnerabilities in VMware, a very common system.
So they're adaptable, and they're finding new ways to breach systems all the time. This is pretty scary stuff for anyone listening. But how can someone know if they're being targeted by 8Base?
Well, let's break it down into a checklist, something you can use to assess your own situation.
Okay, I like checklists.
First, be on the lookout for that file extension we talked about. .8Base, that's a clear sign.
That's that. .8Base equals trouble.
Now, what about unusual network activity?
Yeah, pay attention to any sudden spikes in network traffic or connections to strange IP addresses. It's like noticing unfamiliar cars casing your neighborhood.
Okay, makes sense. Anything else? What about changes to the computer itself? Are there any warning signs there?
Absolutely. Unexplained slowdowns, sudden lockouts, or unexpected reboots, those could be signs that something's wrong.
So the computer might be trying to fight back in its own way.
In a way, yes. You should also check your security settings. Is Windows Defender still enabled? Has your firewall been turned off without your knowledge?
That's like discovering your security system has been tampered with. Yeah, it's a big red flag. Also, keep an eye out for any new administrator accounts that have popped up.
Someone might be setting up shop in my system without my knowledge.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
of course, be very wary of any ransom notes that pop up.
Don't engage, but definitely take it as a serious warning.
Exactly. Also, be on the lookout for abnormal login attempts, like failed attempts from strange IP addresses or at unusual times.
Like someone jiggling the doorknob, seeing if they can get in.
That's a good way to think about it. And then finally, there's the most obvious sign. Files suddenly becoming inaccessible or having that .8 base extension.
At that point, the damage might already be done.
That's right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about how to detect an 8-base attack. But what about prevention? What can our listeners do to protect themselves before it's too late?
Well, that's what we're going to dig into next. The best way to think about this is like building a fortress. You can have the strongest walls, the most advanced defenses. But if someone forgets to lock the gate, it's all for nothing.
So human error, that's a big factor here.
Absolutely. And that's why education and awareness are so crucial. You need to train your team on how to spot those phishing emails.
Give them the tools to be their own first line of defense.
Exactly. Teach them what those red flags look like and drill into them the importance of never clicking on suspicious links or opening unexpected attachments.
Don't click that link.
Right. And, regular security training, even simulated phishing exercises can be incredibly helpful.
Simulated phishing.
Yeah, you send out fake phishing emails to test your employees' awareness. See who might need some extra training.
So it's like a fire drill, but for cyber attacks.
Precisely. It's better to catch those vulnerabilities in a controlled environment than to be caught completely off guard by a real attack.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, what about communication? How important is that in all of this?
Communication is vital. You need clear channels. Your team needs to know exactly what to do if they suspect a phishing attempt or if they see anything suspicious.
So if something feels wrong, report it.
Yes, immediately. Establish clear reporting procedures so they can quickly alert the right people.
No hesitation, no second guessing.
Exactly. And really try to foster a culture of security within your organization.
The culture of security.
Yeah, encourage employees to ask questions, to share information, to report any concerns they have.
So make security everyone's responsibility, not just the IT department's problem.
Exactly. Because remember, even the most sophisticated security technology can be totally undermined if someone accidentally opens the door to these attackers.
So let's say despite our best efforts, 8-base gets through. They encrypt the data. Is it game over at that point?
It's not necessarily game over. This is where those backups we talked about become absolutely crucial.
The safety net.
Right, air-gapped backups, immutable backups. These are backups that are completely isolated, can't be tampered with.
So even if your main systems are compromised, you have a clean copy of your data tucked away somewhere safe.
Exactly. And it's not enough to just have the backups. You need to know they actually work.
Test them regularly.
Exactly. Make sure you can restore your data from those backups. It's like having an escape route, but you need to make sure it's clear and that you know how to use it.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And I imagine having a comprehensive disaster recovery plan is important too.
Oh, absolutely. That plan outlines the steps you'll take to recover from an attack, how you'll restore the data, how you'll communicate with stakeholders, how you'll get your business back up and running.
It's like a roadmap for navigating the chaos of a ransomware attack.
Exactly. And a well-rehearsed disaster recovery plan can really minimize downtime, reduce the overall impact on your business.
So even if the worst happens, you're not starting from scratch. You have a plan and you can bounce back more quickly.
Exactly. And one more thing to keep in mind, paying the ransom doesn't guarantee that you'll get your data back,
Oh, really?
and it often encourages further attacks.
So focus on prevention and recovery, not on negotiating with cybercriminals.
Absolutely. Invest in strong defenses, educate your workforce, have a solid recovery plan in place. Those are your best bets for surviving a ransomware attack.
Now, we've talked about the technical aspects, the human element. But what about law enforcement? What role do they play in all of this?
Well, law enforcement agencies worldwide are actively working to track down and apprehend these ransomware groups.
So there's hope that these criminals will eventually be brought to justice.
There is, and you can actually help by reporting any ransomware attacks to the authorities.
It's not just about protecting yourself. It's about contributing to the fight against cybercrime.
Exactly. The more information they have, the better equipped they'll be to combat this growing threat. It's a collective effort.
Now, there's one more piece of this puzzle that we haven't talked about yet. The dark web.
Ah, yes. The digital underworld.
That's where a lot of this cybercriminal activity takes place, right?
It is. It's this hidden part of the internet, often used for illicit activities, including buying and selling stolen data and ransomware tools.
It sounds like a scary place.
It can be, but it's also a very valuable source of intelligence for cybersecurity professionals. Well, by monitoring the dark web, we can learn about the latest ransomware trends, we can identify new threats, and we can even track the activities of groups like 8Base.
So, to catch a thief, you need to understand how they think and where they operate.
Exactly. Let's take a closer look at this digital underworld and see what we can uncover.
Okay, so how do you even get to the dark web? It's not as simple as just typing in a website address, right?
You're right. You need special software to access it. The most common tool is Tor, which stands for the Onion Router. It's free software that allows you to browse the internet anonymously.
Anonymously.
Yeah, it bounces your communications through a network of relays around the world. It's like putting on a digital disguise, making it much harder to track your online activity.
So that anonymity, that's what attracts a lot of users, including those with less than noble intentions.
Exactly. And so, what can you find on the dark web? Besides ransomware tools and stolen data, it's really a mixed bag.
Like what?
You can find forums, marketplaces for almost anything illegal. Drugs, weapons, counterfeit goods, hacking services, you name it.
So it's a marketplace for all sorts of illicit activities.
Yes, but for cybersecurity professionals, the dark web is a valuable intelligence resource.
How so?
By monitoring these forums and marketplaces, we can gain insights into the latest ransomware trends, identify new threats, and track the activities of specific groups like 8Base.
It's like having a window into the criminal underworld. You can see what they're up to, how they're evolving.
Exactly. And that knowledge is crucial for developing effective defenses. So how does 8Base specifically use the dark web to their advantage?
I'm all ears.
Well, for starters, they use it to recruit new members. They might post job listings on dark web forums looking for skilled hackers and malware developers.
Like a digital job fair for cybercriminals.
Yeah, you could say that. And they also use the dark web to buy and sell stolen data, which could be anything from credit card numbers to sensitive corporate information.
A black market for personal and financial information.
Precisely. And they can even purchase ransomware tools and services, including something called ransomware as a service.
Ransomware as a service. What is that?
Essentially, it's like a subscription. They pay a fee to access ready-made ransomware strains and the infrastructure needed to launch attacks.
So it's like they're shopping for cybercrime tools on the dark web.
Essentially, yes. The dark web provides them with this anonymous and convenient way to access all the resources they need to carry out their attacks.
So understanding how 8Base uses the dark web, that's essential to developing better defenses against them.
Absolutely. The dark web is this complex and constantly evolving landscape, but understanding it is crucial if we want to combat ransomware effectively.
It's unsettling to think that there's this whole marketplace where criminals can buy and sell the tools to wreak havoc. Makes you wonder, what can anyone really do to protect themselves? It feels like a losing battle.
I understand that feeling. It can definitely seem overwhelming. But remember, knowledge is power. And the more we understand about these threats, the better equipped we are to fight back.
So where do we go from here? We've talked about defenses, but what does that look like on a practical level for our listeners?
Well, I think a healthy dose of skepticism is a good place to start.
Skepticism.
Yeah, you need to be really discerning about the information you consume, especially online. There's so much misinformation out there, especially when it comes to cybersecurity.
So don't believe everything you read.
Exactly. And be wary of anyone claiming to have some kind of silver bullet solution to ransomware.
So no magic wand to make it all go away.
I wish. Unfortunately, no. It really comes down to layering your defenses.
What do you mean by layering?
It's about combining technical controls, security awareness training, and a really solid incident response plan. Think of it like building a strong defense, brick by brick.
So it's a multifaceted approach.
Right, and it needs to be constantly evolving, just like the threats themselves. Stay informed about the latest trends, the new techniques, and be prepared to adapt your defenses accordingly.
So it never really ends, this fight.
It can feel that way sometimes, but remember, you don't have to fight this battle alone. There are so many resources available to help you.
Like what?
Well, you've got cybersecurity vendors, consultants, government agencies, industry organizations.
A whole army of support.
Exactly. Reach out, ask for help, and tap into that collective wisdom. We're all in this together. And by working together, we can create a safer digital world.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into 8Base ransomware, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I'd say this. Ransomware is a real and present danger, but it's not invincible. You can protect yourself.
So it's not about living in fear. It's about being informed, prepared, and proactive.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, and understanding ransomware is your best weapon against it.
That's what this deep dive has been all about, giving you the knowledge to navigate the ever-changing world of cybersecurity.
We hope this episode has given you a better understanding of 8Base and what you can do to stay safe.
Remember, stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay safe out there. Thanks for listening.